In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Al Mohler's favorite scam and why you should stop falling for it. Well, I hope you have a good President's Day today. I don't know. I started off the day thinking about the president, President Donald J. Trump, and I'm still thinking about him. I've been awake for a couple hours now. Did you watch my video about whether or not I'm a political idolater? It is a video where I take the Gospel Coalition test developed by none other than Joe Carter. And it turned out that if you want to know the answer, you got to watch the video. Am I a political idolater or not? But I wanted to talk about today. I've got a lot of videos planned for this week. Hold on, let me just have some coffee so I can make sure I stay calm. I got a couple videos lined up for this week that I hope that will be funny, but also edifying to the church. That's what I always try to do. I try to be entertaining, but also try to teach and, put forward some perspectives and things like that. I got some flack over the weekend because of this Twitter exchange. Now, if you remember last week, I didn't really know too much about it, but I saw that there was a conservative Southern Baptist network that was launched, and people are very excited about it. And I was one of those people. I remember, I think I liked the original tweet. I'm not a Baptist, but I definitely think that if you are a Baptist, you should check out this conservative Baptist network. It is very necessary in the progressive, consistent march left that the Southern Baptist Convention is taking part in. But Al Mohler, in a very predictable fashion, Al Mohler responded with the quickness. You see, he always gets out of bed real quick when conservatives are up to something. When liberals are doing things, he's just kind of like, we're not really sure. We got to have tone, the right tone. Al Mohler is one of those that has discovered the grift. A lot of people have discovered this grift, actually. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about it, but basically where, you pretend you're conservative, you rip conservatives all the time, and then you kind of wink at the liberals, that kind of thing. It's a very popular grift. Anyway, Al Mohler responds with the quickness. He says, the real network of Southern Baptists is called the Southern Baptist Convention. It's going to meet June 9th through 10th in Orlando. I look forward to joining you there. Very, very clever, Al Mohler. That was a good one. Got him. He got him. That's very true. And so Ron Martin, who I guess is one of the leaders of this conservative network thing, I don't really know who he is. In fact, a couple people reached out to me when, you'll see in a minute. Rod Martin responds, and he basically makes the same criticism that I just made. He says, with great respect, Al, lots of us are noticing the difference between your response time to the launch of the group of Baptist Faith and Message supporting Baptists and your response time to a woman teaching pastor at the SBC Preachers Conference. Interesting that, but not at all encouraging. And that's a good point, because this is essentially the point that I've been making over the last few months, where Al Mohler will get out of bed very quick when the conservatives are up to something. But when liberals and progressives and feminists and social justice warriors and all this stuff are doing all kinds of insanity, Al Mohler doesn't respond at all. And when he does, it's late and it's very limp-wristed. Limp-wristed, by the way, in case you didn't know, is when people walk around like this. Anyway, so that was a very good and apt description of the situation by Rod Martin. Again, I don't know who Rod Martin is. It certainly seems like he understands the score and all of that kind of thing. Then, a few hours later, Rod Martin responds with an update. And the update reads, Al reached out to me to say that he did not intend his comment to be critical. I'm grateful for that, and I wanted to share it with you. For real. And so Jacob Brunton and Cody Leibel, they're troublemakers, right? So we understand that. So we're all clear they're troublemakers. And look, this is the thing. I've said this many times, and I understand. Look, I understand that people do things differently than I do. Some people will say that I'm too aggressive, I'm too harsh, and things like that. And then some people will say that I'm not harsh enough, that I'm too naive, and I'm not aggressive enough. And the reality is that there's different folks for different things. Some folks are like a sledgehammer. Some folks are like, more like a scalpel when they're dissecting arguments and things like that. Jacob and Cody tend to be more of a sledgehammer, at least on Twitter. That being said, if you ever watched any of their videos or their content or read their blogs, that's not the approach they necessarily take. So it's, there's a difference between how they engage on Twitter and how they engage when they're doing videos and long form stuff. Tweets are tweets, you know what I mean? Like, tweets are the opposite of long form. And so, anyway, the point is, so here's what Jacob says. He says, conservatives, if you want to know why you're losing, look no further. Stop being mindless, spineless, gullible morons. I didn't say it. I didn't say it, I'll tell you that. But I think he's right. I think that Jacob is dead on here, and by Jacob is quote tweeting Cody, who basically said the same thing. I think he's right as well. This is why conservatives lose. Now, if you'd like me to strike from the record mindless, spineless, gullible morons, fine. You don't have to say it that way. But he's exactly right. This is naivete of the highest order. This is gullible. This is very gullible. So if you want to take out the insulting stuff, this is at the very least naive and gullible. Because we've heard this story before. We've seen this tape many times play out, where basically Al Mohler gets to say something publicly that gives him not only his conservative street cred, but also his liberal street cred, because Al Mohler has a good amount of progressive street cred these days. He's still one that they'll pick up the phone and call to get on CNN, where, real conservatives who are uncompromised in any way, will never ever be called to be on CNN unless they're being called to mock on CNN, which some people are, and some people do get to be mocked on CNN and that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. If CNN called me up and wanted me to do a story about, how I think the Bible is the source of authority for all law, I would be glad to do it, knowing full well that I would be mocked mercilessly. But you see, here's the thing. Like, we've seen this story before, where Al Mohler says something, and then it's very obvious what he's doing. This is critical of the conservative network. It is. It is critical of the conservative network. There's no other way to take this. In fact, everyone who responded to push back on me a little bit agreed that this was obviously a critical tweet. So what's the deal here? Al Mohler picks up the phone and calls up Rod Martin. Hey, Rod. And explains to him how it's not critical. He didn't intend it to be critical. So in a private call, we're expected to believe that Al Mohler wasn't being critical here when he clearly was. That's naive to believe that. That's naive to believe that. And it's one thing to believe it, but Rod Martin here is now spreading this, giving Al Mohler more cover for his nonsense game. This is a grift. This is a scam. This is flim-flam. This is a bamboozle. Look, I'm from Brooklyn. I know a scam when I see one. This is a scam. This is the scam where you pretend to be conservative, but always punch at conservatives, which is fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't punch at conservatives. Conservatives are a completely legitimate target. But then you pussyfoot with the liberals and you sissy fight with the liberals. That's really obnoxious. And it's a grift, it's a scam, and most people are realizing this. So this is naive for Rod to spread this message that Al didn't really mean this to be critical. What did he mean? Why don't you explain what he actually did mean? You can't, because obviously that would make everyone involved in this look stupid, because nobody would believe that this is not a response to this conservative network thing that's going on in the Southern Baptist Convention. So yes, Jacob Brunton and Cody Leibel are 100% correct here. If we continue to be this naive, where as long as Al Mohler gives us a call, does his Jedi mind trick on us, and I don't know what he actually does, although I do have a video coming out about what he actually does on these phone calls. So like we can't let this fly. This is a scam that Al Mohler's running. Let's stop falling for it. Why is Rod Martin falling for it? I don't know him, okay? But the question is, why is he falling for this? Is he naive, or does he have another angle? See, I'm sick of the covert angles game here, because it's like, well, where does Al Mohler stand? What is Al Mohler up to? What is Rod Martin up to? Let's just be straightforward here. I mean, if you really do believe him, Rod Martin, then explain to all of us, and we should believe him too, I guess. Explain to all of us what this comment was all about. What did he intend it to be? He didn't intend it to be critical? Okay, fine, I'm willing to hear you out. That seems very far-fetched, but I'm willing to hear that out. So I got some pushback here. regarding Rod. You know, a lot of people responded to me, like probably 3 or 4 people responded to me and said, Rod is not our enemy. You know, we shouldn't be criticizing him for this because if you don't think he's conservative, then, you know, things like that. And I'm like, I didn't say Rod was our enemy. I didn't say he was our enemy. I'm just saying that if this is the strategy, then we will lose. Conservatives will lose if this is the strategy. Now, I have nothing to go. I don't know the man. I have nothing to go on except the tweets. Al Mohler puts out a critical tweet about the conservative network convention. Then Rod Martin calls him on it, fairly in a very good amount of respect. Some people said, what are you saying, that you shouldn't have respect for Al? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Is that really what you think I said? No, this tweet is fine. With great respect, Al. A lot of you are noticing the difference in your response time. Yes, that's a very good tweet. This is the naive tweet, the update tweet. That's the naive tweet. Yes, this is how you should respond to Al Mohler. Yes, Al Mohler has earned a certain amount of respect in Southern Baptist circles. Yes, definitely. With great respect, Al. That's a great way to start. With great respect, Al. A lot of us are noticing this little grift that you're playing, where you're always ripping conservatives and you're always letting progressives slide. We've all noticed this. What's going on? Like, that's a very good response. And then Al Mohler doesn't, of course, respond publicly. He picks up the phone and does his Jedi call, where somehow words have different meanings and we're in opposite land. Like, if conservatives are going to fall for this kind of nonsense, we are going to lose. Cody and Jacob are 100% correct. You might not like how they say it. You might hate on them calling Al Mohler mindless or spineless, or Rod Martin mindless or spineless and all that stuff. You might not like that, and I understand. It's not my cup of tea either. Although sometimes it is, it depends on the target. But anyway, you might not like that, but it doesn't make them wrong. They're 100% right. If we keep falling for this kind of stupid trick, then we've got no hope. Naivete is not a fruit of the Spirit. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. God bless. Look, I'm all for encouraging people to join this fight, whether they do things exactly like I do, whether they don't do them as much as I do, whether they're as aggressive as I am, whether they're not as sure as I am. I've said this so many times in my videos I can't even count them. How many times have I talked about the difference between Ezra and Nehemiah? So yes, I want to encourage Rod Martin to continue the path that he's on. I want him to push back against this stuff. But what I do want to, one of the ways that you can encourage someone is to say, you know what, you need to stop being so naive. You need to stop assuming that everything Al Mohler says is 100% truthful and right and good and righteous and stuff like that. Like, sometimes when he picks up the phone to call you to explain himself, he's lying to you. Sometimes he might be stretching the truth. Sometimes he might be being a political, he might be doing some political maneuverings. Like, we can't afford to be just believing every single thing that we hear from this side of the debate. It just doesn't work that way. Look, if you need information about Al Mohler's shakiness, let's say, to be nice, watch John Harris's latest video about Al Mohler. Watch John Harris's latest video about Al Mohler, and then explain to me why we should trust that man. Explain that to me. Oh, he's got a track record of... Yeah, he's got a track record, fine. But he's been failing for the last few years. Failing. Okay, so track records are good, but they work both ways. They cut both ways. So if you've been doing really well for years and years and years, and then for the last few years you've been failing and hiring critical race theorists and hiding them and harboring them and things like that, then what evidence do I have that that's not going to just continue? And so I'm all about, encouraging people, but I'm not about coddling people. I'm all about encouraging support, but I'm not about coddling for support. I'm not about compromising for support. This was a gullible thing to do, to post this update on you. Listen, if he calls you and you believe him, fine, but don't spread disinformation. That's the point. Don't spread disinformation unless you're willing to spill the beans on exactly what it was that he meant. Anyway, I hope this video is helpful. God bless.